All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to tackle a huge question, maybe one of the biggest. What is truth?
I mean, we use the word true 100 times a day, right? But what does it actually mean? Philosophers have been wrestling with this for, well, forever. It seems so simple on the surface, but it's really not. So let's dive in.
Okay, to keep things simple, let's use a single statement as our guide through all this. Snow is white. Seems pretty straightforward, yeah? But why is it true? What is it that makes it true? This little sentence is going to be our anchor.
So at its core, truth isn't really about your feelings or what you wish was the case. It's generally seen as this objective thing. A statement is either true or it's false. It's binary. A hit or a miss, no in between.
Now, before we get into the weeds, we have to make a really important distinction. There's what truth is, the definition, and then there's how we test for truth, the methods we use. People mix these up all the time, and it leads to a lot of confusion. So let's keep them separate.
All right, first up is the theory that's probably the most intuitive. It's the one most of us use every day without even realizing it. We're calling it truth as a mirror.
This is the correspondence theory, and the idea is pretty simple. A statement is true if it corresponds to the real world. Truth is like a perfect mirror, reflecting reality exactly as it is. What you say matches what's out there.
Let's go back to our example. Snow is white. According to this theory, that sentence is true if and only if you go outside, look at the stuff we call snow, and it actually has the property of being white. Simple, right? The words match the world. Done.
And this idea, it's the foundation for so much of how we think, especially in science. It's based on this concept of realism, that there's a real world out there that exists whether we're looking at it or not. Truth is mind independent. Our beliefs don't create it, they just have to match up with it.
Okay, but what if truth isn't a mirror reflecting the outside world? What if it's more about how all of our ideas fit together, like a giant, perfectly woven web? This brings us to a totally different way of looking at things.
This is the coherence theory. It says a belief is true if it fits into a system of other beliefs without any contradictions. It's all about internal consistency. A new idea is true if it just clicks into place with everything else you already hold to be true. So for snow is white, a coherence theorist would say it's true not because you looked outside, but because it fits perfectly with your other beliefs. Beliefs like water freezes into crystals, and those crystals reflect all light, and things that reflect all light look white. See how they all lock together? Each belief supports the whole system.
But this leads to a really interesting and kind of tricky question. If you have a system of beliefs that's perfectly consistent with no contradictions at all, does that automatically make it true?
And yeah, this is where the theory runs into its biggest problem. Think about it. You could have a fantastically detailed fantasy world, like in a novel, where everything is perfectly consistent within its own rules. But that doesn't mean dragons are real, right? This is the isolation problem. A perfectly coherent system of beliefs could be a complete delusion, totally detached from reality.
All right, our last stop on this tour takes a hard right turn. It doesn't ask if a belief is a good mirror of reality or if it fits in a web of ideas. Instead, it asks a much simpler question. Is it useful? Does it work?
This is the pragmatic theory, and folks like William James were big proponents. The idea here is that a belief is true if it helps us get by in the world, if it leads to successful outcomes. He called it the cash value of an idea. What's its practical payoff?
So how does snow is white fare here? Well, a pragmatist would say that believing snow is white is a true belief because it's super useful. It helps you predict the weather, it helps you design winter camouflage, it even guides scientific research. Because believing it has a positive practical payoff, it gets the stamp of true.
But, and this is a big but, this leads us to the useful lie dilemma. Think about the placebo effect. You give someone a sugar pill and tell them it's powerful medicine. They believe it, and they actually get better. The belief, "this will heal me," worked. It was incredibly useful. But does that make it true that the sugar pill was medicine? See the problem? It kind of muddies the water between what's effective and what's actually real.
Okay, so we've looked at mirrors, webs, and tools. You might be thinking, this is all pretty abstract. Why does any of this matter in the real world? Well, it matters because this whole concept of truth is the absolute foundation of something we all want: knowledge.
And here's the key takeaway. Philosophers have a term for this. They say knowledge is factive.
All that means is you cannot know something that is false. You can believe something that's false, sure. You can have an opinion that's false, but you can't know it. Truth is that magic ingredient that turns a simple belief into actual knowledge.
And this really is what it's all about. You can have great reasons for believing something. That's called justification. But your reasons are internal. They're in your head. Truth is the external anchor. It's what connects your belief to the way the world actually is. To have real knowledge, you need both good reasons and for it to be true.
You know, this isn't a new idea. Way back, over 2,000 years ago, Aristotle basically nailed it. He said that speaking the truth is just saying that something that is, and that something that isn't. It's that simple, powerful idea of a bridge between what we say and what is real. So it all comes together in this classic recipe for knowledge that philosophers talk about. You need three things. First, you have to actually believe it. Second, you need good reasons for it. That's justification. And third, the final crucial step, it has to actually be true. Without that last ingredient, all you have is a justified belief which could still be wrong.
At the end of the day, this is why we do science, why we have debates, why we gather evidence. The whole point, the epistemic goal, is to get our beliefs to line up with reality. Truth is the target we're all aiming for. It's what turns a guess into knowledge.
And so I'll leave you with this final question, which kind of brings everything we've talked about full circle. If a belief helps you, if it makes you successful and happy, but it isn't actually true, is it still worth holding on to? What do we value more? What works for us or what's real?